I've come to realize that there really isn't something that's geared towards the wedding planning stress itself. Of course, there are a lot of like generic ways of doing that, but just like with anything, sometimes wedding is such a big event in our lives. This is where the family comes together, in-laws, the merging of families, all like the big major things in our life. It truly is a major celebration. And because it is, a lot of things inside are going to come up to the surface. Whether it's about a previous relationship that you had with a family member, a comment that was made a long time ago that is now like, oh, I don't know if I can deal with that. Like that triggers me so much. Being around this people, being around those people is very triggering for me. And my insecurities, they know all my insecurities, and I'm scared that they might use those insecurities against me in this wedding. And if we're not aware of those insecurities and triggers, we're just going to go in there all the time, upset, annoyed, tired, exhausted, depleted. And we don't want that. We want you to enjoy your wedding planning. Do you want to stay grounded, less triggered, less annoyed, and mindful throughout your wedding process? Well, then, welcome. You've come to the right place. Hi, lovelies. Welcome back to our channel, and I'm super excited to introduce to you a brand new series, The Little Book of Mindful Wedding Planning, eBook Walkthrough. I have linked the ebook in the description below where you can grab your own copy. In this series, we'll explore and dive deep into each chapter. So, if you're getting married or is close to someone who is getting married, or is just altogether into mindfulness, then this series is for you. Join us every Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays as we journey through the little book of mindful wedding planning, chapter by chapter. Before we get on this week's chapter, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you can never miss an episode. Together, we'll create moments of mindfulness amidst the demands of wedding planning. Hello, lovelies. Welcome back. It's another episode, and today we are on chapter 20, Insecurities and Triggers. Let me read on. This is real talk, and probably one of the most important parts of helping you in your mindful wedding planning journey. What makes you defensive? It's mostly our insecurities that trigger us. You know, like all the other conversations, you have an answer, but then there's one thing or three things, or maybe more, that when brought up just brings up a whole new different vibe in your body. This is not to say that you should absolutely prepare for every single meeting or scenario, because then you'll miss actually living a life, because we will always be triggered one way or another. But having at least some type of understanding of what it is that we are truly insecure and annoyed about will help us slowly love and accept that part of ourselves. For example, I didn't like that I have to explain or share details on what I did to lose weight. So before, when someone asks me, "Oh, how much weight have you lost?" I would always overshare or get defensive, depending on who asks, of course. "Oh, I did this, but then I had to try this. I am not my goal weight yet, but this," and then I just ramble on. Why? Because I feel like I still have not lost enough weight. I'm still not enough. So essentially, I feel like all my efforts are just never enough. I'm still insecure about how I look. I had to take a moment with myself and realize that I have already done so much work and there is no reason for me to be insecure. My efforts were massive and I should be proud of myself. Only when I was aware that this question makes me so defensive, I started putting together multiple quick responses, and one of my favorites is, I don't look at the number anymore, but I do feel great when I eat healthy. Half the time, sometimes people will end it there and say, "Oh, okay, cool." But half the time, they'll ask, "But what's your diet like?" etc. And I would usually answer it with, "I'm still learning. It's an ongoing process." In your case, Someone might ask you, what's your wedding budget? And some people start their question with, I don't mean to pry, but, and then they actually go ahead and pry. And if you have some insecurities about that amount you set, or there are some financial situation triggers there, this question might put you in a defensive mode, especially if the person that asks you have some previous history of being judgy or is just someone who has no business knowing it. We know how hard it is to fake it till you make it. But you can carry quick responses like, it's a learning process. We're pretty creative, so we're just taking in information as we go. Some people will stop at that. But, there are some other people who will be like, yeah, but how much? You can then go, well, just enough. And then change the topic. Ask them about something else. Ask something about that person, usually something that is interesting to them. That's not about your wedding. They'll most likely love to talk about themselves anyway. Don't stay in that awkward and prying moment with them. If you're not ready to answer, then that's exactly what you should say. Oh dear, I'm not quite in a place to answer this yet. We're still in the process. Okay, I'm going to pause for a second. I'm going to pause the reading for a second. I just want to go deeper into the last readings that I've done, because as I go more into reading psychology books, mindfulness, understanding things, understanding yourself, your inner child, your triggers, your insecurities, and learning from credible professionals on YouTube and their books as well, I've come to realize that there really isn't something that's geared towards the wedding planning stress itself. Of course, there are a lot of generic ways of doing that, but just like with anything, sometimes wedding is such a big event in our lives. This is where the family comes together, in-laws, the merging of families, all the big major things in our life. It truly is a major celebration. And because it is, a lot of things inside are going to come up to the surface. Whether it's about a previous relationship that you had with a family member, a comment that was made a long time ago that is now like, oh, I don't know if I can deal with that. That triggers me so much. Being around these people, being around those people is very triggering for me. And my insecurities, they know all my insecurities, and I'm scared that they might use those insecurities against me in this wedding. And if we're not aware of those insecurities and triggers, we're just going to go in there all the time, upset, annoyed, tired, exhausted, depleted. And we don't want that. We want you to enjoy your wedding planning. And that's why when I started writing this ebook, it just flowed so quickly, just like, oh my God, this and this. And I've read about this in the psychology book, and I've heard about this licensed therapist talking about this, and I've heard about a psychologist talking about this. And I'm just putting things together for you guys so that even past the wedding, even past major events in our lives, we can use these tools in our daily lives. And I've mentioned there about quick responses, and I'm telling you, before I don't have quick responses, I will always be just caught off guard, or I can't believe that person said that to me. I still do, by the way. This is not to say that I'm perfect or anything. But now I do sometimes can understand how I can control myself and what is the best plan of action for that moment. If I am upset at something, should I voice out my upset feelings? Because it doesn't seem like this is going to turn out into anything productive. I don't think this is going to be a productive conversation anymore. I don't want to be involved in this. This is not a space I want to be involved in. Sure, if that's what you think, go ahead, have fun with it. But with quick responses that I've formulated throughout the years, it always changes because everyone goes through different seasons of our lives. It's so funny because I've also used that in career. I've also used that in my career, in my business, in my friendships, in my other relationships, in business ventures. And I was just like, oh, wow, that was, sometimes when you give quick responses and you feel confident, I'm just like, wow, that was really witty. That is really, really mature of me. And I would sometimes hear myself and just what? I said that? Wow, that was really cool. And this chapter, which is the big two, that usually is The big two that reveals a lot of things about ourselves, about our past, about our dreams, about our real feelings, which are triggers and insecurities. And before I go into this further, I want to make sure that we understand what insecurities and triggers really mean. Eric Patterson, a licensed counselor, wrote an article on choosetherapy.com defining what insecurity is. Insecurity involves an overall sense of uncertainty or anxiety about your worth, abilities, skills, and value as a person, conveying the message that you're at risk or in danger of something or someone. The negative impacts of insecurity could be physical, mental, or emotional. Without insecurity, you can't accomplish full trust or function to your fullest potential. When it says that it's an overall sense of uncertainty, it's really sometimes hard to take that in, because it's true. Even as an adult, sometimes there's so many things that we're insecure about, and even if we think we're really good at something, there's still some little voice in our heart, in our mind, in our body, in our soul that says, "Hey, not good enough. I don't think that's gonna work out for you." That's who we're trying to talk to and be friends with, because there's always going to be insecurities. It's always going to come up again, especially in a big major celebration like this in your life. It's just inevitable. And the funny thing is that what happens sometimes is that because when there are weddings, everybody's lives get so intertwined and things will come up. So now you're not just dealing with your insecurities, other people's insecurities might also come up. And unfortunately, because it's your wedding, I mean, it's not really unfortunately, but it just so happened that this is the event on hand. This is where everybody's going to get involved. That also triggers them. That's how their insecurities show up as well. Not your fault at all. I mean, nobody's fault. I don't think it's anybody's fault. That's what I'm saying here too, where it's not your fault, other people's fault. Sometimes we're all just unaware of what's happening. But if one of us, especially you as the person who's getting married, is aware of where you stand, where your insecurities are, since you are essentially the leader of this wedding, you and your partner are still leading this, even if it's a family affair. You both are still leading this. And you want to make sure that you know where you stand and you feel comfortable about what it is that you might be insecure about, and know and be aware of your triggers. That's really important. And speaking of triggers, Tracy Pedersen wrote an article about triggers that has been medically reviewed by Dr. Vera Serapalli, who is a licensed psychologist, and they define trigger as: in psychology, a trigger is a stimulus that causes a painful memory to resurface. A trigger can be any sensory reminder of the traumatic event, a sound, sight, smell, physical sensation, or even a time of day or season. For instance, if you got into a bad car accident while listening to a certain song or while chewing grape bubblegum, these sensory experiences could become triggers for years to come. I feel like triggers and insecurities are so interconnected in a sense where I always feel like, oh, I'm going to share with you my insecurity and trigger, which is so related to each other. Well, one of them, because I have a lot. But I'm very aware of that now. Before, I had really bad acne when I was a teenager, like really young. And I'm not talking about pimples, like 1 or 2 or 3. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about a village of acne decided that they're going to make my face their permanent residence, okay? The whole face. They have little villages here, here, here. Like they're basically, I have a village of acne on my face, what I looked like when I was younger. And of course, as teenagers, as little kids, I was made fun of all the time. And I would even feel people be so uncomfortable looking at my face, talking to me. And I would feel like, but I really have, but I'm kind of a nice person. Like, I'm not going to say I'm nice because I'm not perfect, but I'm a decent person. Like, but I can tell that they're judging my face. I can tell that they can't believe that someone can have that much acne. It's like a spectacle, really. They're like, looking at me while I'm talking. I know they're doing their best to listen. I know that some people really have good intentions to talk to me, but I can also see, like I can see them like looking at my face instead of in my eye. They're looking at the pimples. They're looking at my acne. And of course, other kids also made fun of me and told me, oh, you can't join this because that's for people who have clear skin. Or maybe you can't host this thing because at some point when I was in university, I started hosting some events. And and I feel so bad because I know that just like, oh, do you want to put more makeup on? And I'm just like, what do you mean? I already put so much makeup. I already tried to cover everything. And I know that they were talking about my acne. I know that for sure. But back in the day, like, they just can't understand how come someone has that much pimples. Like, how does that happen? Like, well, you know what? When God was giving out clear skin, I was out of town. I was not there. I did not get that gift. I did not get that package. At one point, I was just like, you know what? My phone number will be 1-800-acne for the rest of my life. And it was so hard. Up until now, it's just one of my biggest insecurities. And the trigger around that is a little bit different for me because it's not really generated by other people, but it's more physical, internal. So my trigger now is when I feel a pimple coming up and like a really big one. I'm not talking about like real bumps, but when I still get random like pustule, like really deep, thick pimple once in a while. And when I feel that, because when acne happens, you don't really feel it right away. You don't really see it right away by the people, but you feel it underneath your skin growing. That's how deep my acne was. That's how deep I get my acne before when I was younger. Really, it's like, again, it's like a commune in there, just like, you know what, guys, today we're gonna give her such a big pimple. And I feel it. And just the moment that I felt that, it just changes everything about me. I feel like I'm in high school again. People are laughing at me. I'm in university. People are looking at my face. That's how I feel like. That's such a trigger for me. That feeling when I touch my skin and I feel that pimple coming up, it's a different feeling. And that's how my triggers and insecurities are so linked. And you might think that this is like, oh, that's a you problem, which is really, it's a me problem. It's never an other people problem. It's really a me problem. And so now, as an adult, obviously, I've got access to skincare. I've got access to medication. I've got access to a lot of things that can help me better my skin. Even at that, when people still come to me and be just like, oh my God, I love your makeup, I still feel like they don't. It's just this deep rooted insecurity. I'm like, I can't believe that you would like my makeup. I remember I was at Sephora the other day and one of the girls in there was just like, oh, I love your skin. And I'm just like, are you mocking me? Obviously I didn't say that out loud, but in my head, I'm just like, is she freaking mocking my face? Because I can't believe that someone would tell that to me. Because I've never heard anybody really when I was younger say, oh, you have great skin. That is such an unheard line. Like I've never heard of anyone coming up to me just like, oh, your skin looks amazing. And so now that I'm older, it's so hard to take that compliment. It's so hard to be genuinely accepting of something about my face that someone is saying. Like, oh, your blush is so nice. I'm like, really? It's like, oh my God, your concealer. Is that you're using that concealer? What's that? That looks so good. Which powder are you using? That looks so good. I can't even sometimes just like, are you freaking kidding me? And I feel myself spitting out my insecurities and projecting them on other people. And they'll be just like, oh my God, I love your skin. And I'm just like, yeah, it's really red underneath. I have like acne scars underneath. This is makeup. And in my head, I'm just like, they don't need to know that. And I'm like, I'm older now. I can take care of my skin better. I do have access to more things now that I'm older. They don't have to know that. I just have to accept things as they are. But just like so now when people say you have great skin, I'll be just like, yeah, thank you. I'll be just like, yeah, thank you. I really do. Whether they are genuine about it or not is their problem. I no longer take that as a responsibility for me to judge if they're giving me genuine compliments. I don't even take that anymore because before I would take that again, it's like, oh, I'm pretty sure they can see my acne scars underneath my makeup. That's why. They probably feel bad about me. That's what I feel like. Now I'm just like, yeah, I know it's amazing, eh? Yeah, I know it's amazing, eh? Like, I really love it too. That's it. I take it as it is. And you know what really helped me in this whole process is one of my favorite Delulu practices. I'm pretty sure you've heard me talk about this in past episodes where I give the compliment to myself first because then I don't wait on anybody else to give it to me. So if I wake up and I like my makeup,
So now I'm like, girl, you look so good.
so now I tell myself in the mirror every morning,
Girl, you look so good. You pulled that off? You did that yourself? Wow.
and even if I do have literally some breakouts and things are not working out for me in my makeup and stuff like that, I'd be just like, you're gonna look amazing no matter what. Sometimes I would wear like the most atrocious outfit because that's all I can put together. I'm just tired or like I have no time to do anything. I'm just like, you're still gonna look good. You're still gonna look good. You're still gonna feel good because you're choosing to look good and you're choosing to feel good. If people don't see it, it's really not your problem. Really isn't.
How is this related to wedding planning, you ask?
Well, here's why. My example earlier was about someone asking you what your wedding budget is. Now, that is very external. Like, people don't know what you were talking about with your partner or what your financial situation is or what happened before in the past, what happened, something happened, someone changed jobs or someone moved. I don't know what happened. But that's where if you're insecure about something, say for example, you wanted, okay, say you wanted to have a budget of $60,000 if that's what you plan to have. But the reality is you probably can only do 40. Hypothetical, this is just totally just like pulling things out of thin air. $40,000, okay? Instead of 60 grand, you can only do 40 grand, right? That's an internal narrative. Whether you're insecure about that, whether because somewhere in the past, something also happened that you weren't able to give yourself that full amount that you wanted. And so now that trigger's coming up. Again, many, many different ways that this can come up. But that's my example. So now when people ask you what your budget is, it's a little bit harder to answer, isn't it? Because your mind is telling you, well, your budget is 40. That's what the book says. That's what the accounting says. That's what the bank says. But my heart says 60. So either you take that question, oh, what's your budget? What's your wedding budget? Either you take that question and be just like, yeah, 40. You can tell, right? Like, 40.
Yeah, 40K. Yeah, we're gonna do 40 grand.
You can tell if that's your response. But if you ask someone, it's like, yeah, oh my God. Because if you were able to have access to that 60, you're gonna be just like, oh, our budget's 60 grand. There is some type of confidence in there. There is a change in demeanor, a change in physical stance, a change in involvement and enthusiasm. And that's where I'm saying that it always comes out to be physical because your response to people asking about specific things that internally somehow maybe you're insecure about, or there are some deeper stories in there that you haven't really gone around with, your response to other people might be defensiveness. You might be a little bit passive aggressive and you might lose patience. You might not be welcome when people have a genuine curiosity inquiry about your wedding because they care about you. They just want to know. I don't know. I just want to ask. You're getting married. It's a conversation. I thought I'd ask. Let me read on. Think about if you're projecting your anxiety onto the people you're talking to. Sometimes people ask annoying questions just because they're truly intrigued and curious and not because they want to deliberately hurt your feelings. The hurt feelings sometimes are our own insecurities and anxieties that are coming up inside our bodies. No judgment here. We all have those. Not every group, crowd, or meeting is positive. People can only show up for you and meet you where they have already met themselves. So if you've already gone so creative with coming up with great plans and ways to save money and design your wedding beautifully, and they still don't get it, it's because they are not there yet. or it's just not something that has never even crossed their mind yet. It's your vision and strategy, not theirs. No, they're not stupid or trying to hurt you. Absolutely not. It's just there's no way for them to get it because you've already gone so far deep into your wedding planning research and strategy that they just are not able to keep up. So I'm going to relate this back to the wedding questions. We're just like, oh, so if someone asks you, like, well, why did you book that photographer? Like, are they the same style as you? Usually, okay, sometimes probably somewhere in the past, whether it's distant or recently, someone very special to you probably asked you a question, which absolutely made you doubt your decision, however that looks like. Or you probably didn't receive much confirmation and validation from decisions that you've made in the past. So this question now, questioning you about questioning, quote unquote, for the people listening in the podcast, I have air quotes, quote unquote, questioning you about why you booked this photographer, which is, I mean, it's a generic question. It sounds like really they're just curious. Again, they're just curious. But to you, maybe it meant something else. To you, maybe it meant, oh, I can't believe that they're not trusting my decision. Maybe it inside you, it's bringing up doubt in yourself. Maybe inside you, it's bringing up insecurities about not being confident with the decisions that you make for yourself because you probably haven't heard, again, that validation in the past. Remember my acne example earlier when someone tells me you have great skin, I'm just like, no. But I have to understand that they're just saying it. Just they don't know me from before. They don't know. Like they're not related to the teenagers in the past who made fun of me, to other people who have not complimented me that I wish they complimented me. They're not related to that. They're not that. This is a totally different situation. When you're aware of that, when I'm aware of that, when we are aware of that, we can distance ourselves. Oh, it's just a question. And you can feel confident. I'm like, yeah, I've done my research about that photographer. I'm pretty confident about that. And you know what? Even if things doesn't work out, it's going to work out because I choose to be happy about my choices. And when you're aware of that, you're also telling that part, that insecure part of yourself, you know what? We can handle this. I hear you. Who doesn't get insecure? I hear you. We can handle this. Maybe in the past you had a relationship with someone in your family or someone in your close circle who made sure that everything was a competition, to make sure that you and that person is always competing. You might not even be competing with that person, but that other person, again, this is when you were younger or distant past, recent past, however, it's in the past, that this person always tries to one up you, just one up you. Okay. Everything is somehow a competition for no reason. No reason. Because you were just like, I can do what you do. I'm happy for you. But somehow this person in the past has always somehow found a way to turn everything into an Olympic game, like championship game, you know? And it's not. It's just an experience. Now, in the present moment, you have wonderful in-laws and your sister-in-law happen to be also getting married, say, for example, in the same year or in the next year. Now you're so scared. You're like, so I'm like, oh my God, I don't want to compete. Like, what if she's probably going to compete it. She's probably going to try and compete about this because it's a big event. Like, but this is not about her. This is about your feeling about what happened in the past. Is it true that she doesn't want competition? Probably not. Probably she wants some competition. We don't know. We don't know. But if you had a good relationship with your sister-in-law, I'm just like an example. If it's a really good relationship that you have with your sister-in-law and, you know, you can't wait for them to be part of your family, you're all going to be together in one family, you can probably, in confidence, with kindness and grace, bring that up and share with them and be vulnerable. Again, if you're comfortable doing it. You know what? In the past, I had this friend, and so I just don't want to bring that into our relationship because I really cherish this relationship. I can't wait to be part of your family and for us to be officially family after the wedding. So I wanted to make sure that I tell you this story. I share with you how I'm feeling. That way, I can also be aware of how I'm talking and how I'm treating you because again, I love you. You're gonna be my sister-in-law. I don't want to overshadow this new relationship with my past insecurities, my past triggers, my my past essentially. And also good relationships, like relationships that are open. Overshadowing each other might not even be part of the conversation because why? You deserve the best wedding that you can have. I deserve the best wedding that I can have. This is not in competition with you. You deserve your wedding to be the best wedding for you. However, that looks like for you. I deserve to have the wedding that I love because that's what I wanted. I deserve that too. It's not a competition. This is not because someone is better. This is not because I am better. It's just because you had more budget. I don't have budget. It's because I am struggling with this and you're not struggling with this. It's not a comparison. Apples and bananas. It's is it peaches and oranges? Oranges and apples? Apples and bananas? I don't know. But it's not the same fruit. It's not. It's just not. Let me read on. If you just started a job, it will take time for you to learn and understand what your manager does and how she does it. And even so, you'll still have to somehow do it your own eventually. So, what does that mean? It doesn't mean you're not smart. It just means that your manager's experience and knowledge of the job is just so entrenched that at that moment, you won't be able to get it until maybe months or years after you've done it yourself. People also have good intentions that sometimes come up in the wrong way. Again, not because they want to hurt you, but because that's just the way their communication style is. We're not here to change them. Try and focus on the message that they are sending instead of the way that they are trying to communicate it. We know it's hard. You can say something like, I'm sure that didn't mean to come off as hurtful as it did, because I know you're truly concerned and interested in helping me. I want to understand you. So why don't we restart the conversation with less hurtful words and find a more positive approach? I'll start. Now, this is where you can also set your boundaries. You can try and work it out, especially if they are your loved ones. But at the same time, if you're not getting through to them, it's probably time to say something like, I understand this is something you've already decided on. And it's tricky because we have already finalized it too on our end. So why don't we look into something else that we can work on since we can't do anything more about XYZ thing? Know your limits and boundaries and find civil and respectful ways to communicate them. Not too nice that you're being pushed over, but respectful enough to get your firm point across. List out your insecurities. This can obviously be self-talk, but knowing what makes you triggered and insecure will help you in preparing responses for them. This will help you feel more empowered and less stressed. You can also limit communication and exposure with the people that tend to somehow always say something triggering to you until such time when you're fully ready. Man, this thing is heavy, man. It's so real. And there are just people sometimes, I don't know if they're using it against you. Well, they probably are if you're really upset at that. But they just know your insecurities and they know your triggers, they know your buttons, and they just push it. They push it because they want to feel better. They probably want to make sure that their point is considered and not yours. But this is your wedding. And I'm not saying pick a fight. Know if someone is using your insecurities and triggers against you. And again, these are family, right? Like obviously you're getting into a wedding. Most of the people in here are people that you know. People have seen you probably go through different phases in your life since childhood, when you bought your first car, you got your first job, you got your first boyfriend, and now you're getting married. All these things, they've seen you through seasons in your life. So they have somewhat an idea of your insecurities. The triggers probably know a little bit inside, but the insecurities, if you've hung out with them and if they've seen you in different stages in your life, they probably know. They know. And sometimes, as much as they're really great and, they're part of your close circle, those jabs, those comments, those questions that are not very friendly around your insecurities and triggers sounds so inconsiderate. And again, we can't change them. We cannot change them. But we also know what makes us insecure. We also know what triggers us. Does that mean we're still insecure? No, but we can do it with a little bit of insecurity there. I mean, I am confident, I'd say, but I still have some insecurities and I would talk about it. So there are things that we can do around our insecurities, but there are also things that we can't change. So if I'm insecure about my hair, for example, which not really because I love my hair, but if I'm insecure about my hair because it's just too thick and curly and like I try to straighten it, it's just like it just doesn't straighten the way I want it to be. It's just always going to be wavy, curly, just the way that it is. I can't change that if I'm insecure about it. So I find ways around it and try and like it and make it work to my advantage. So I don't know, I'm going to be honest. This is Insecurities and Triggers. I put my hair here in a half bun. Because if I take that bun out, it's just going to go like this. It's just going to puff up like, it's just going to puff up basically. And I don't want it to puff up. So I can now do my own hairstyle. I can figure out my own way of doing things. And when you come up and find your own way of doing things to handle your insecurities and triggers, that might not be the norm for everyone. And we have to be comfortable about people not attacking, but like people commenting on that. It's like, oh, why did you do your hair like that? Like, oh, why is your hair always up in a bun? Or like, why is your hair only half up, half down? Why is it never fully down? Girl, I love my hair the way that it is. I really now try and find ways to figure out how to like myself fully. Is it hard? Yeah. You think I wake up in the morning and be just like, yeah, I woke up like this, I'm Beyonce. No. Half the time we're just like, oh my God, what is this? And like I wake up in the morning, I like take out my bun and like my hair just goes, I'm like, what is this? And I can't even use, the regular hair tie with like the thin, I can't use that because it's just gonna rip. It can't hold my hair. It's so heavy, it's so thick, it just can't handle that. So over time, so when I was saying in the book earlier where you have done your own research, like over time in your wedding planning, you have already done your own research. You've already spoken to a lot of vendors. You've downloaded as much information as you can, whatever resources you got. No one can come and tell you, hey, why are you doing it like that? You know that works for you. Like if someone tells me, why is your hair this and this and that? Like, why don't you use this oil and that oil? I know that I've already tried those oils. I know that those oils doesn't work for me. I know that as much as I am insecure about my hair, as much as I don't like my hair sometimes, I know that some things doesn't work for it. So instead of pushing myself to use those things that clearly doesn't work, I created my own combination of products. I created my own hairstyling process. I created my own way of putting my hair together, of whatever it is, of the conditioners that I use. Maybe I mix things together. I've created my own formula. And that's how I handle some insecurities in my life and some triggers. Because those trigger when I hear someone like, again, this is from teenager, when someone's criticizing me and someone's like making fun of my face or my hair, I feel like it's taking me back to when I was younger and I just felt so ugly. I felt so like, why can't you see me pretty decent? Like, how come I never had access? I can't obviously blame myself back in the day because I was young. I really don't have access. And before, the internet was not the same as now. I can't just Google how to get rid of pimples before. I don't even know how to Google that. I didn't even know what pimples were. I thought it was just because I slept late because that's what my parents told me. But now that I'm older, I know more. I know more. And so it's hard for you to tell me otherwise. Same with your wedding planning. Even if some things you might be insecure about, whether it's the budget, the venue, the decorator, your gown, your choice of hair, your choice of makeup, whatever it is, that might bring up a certain type of insecurity and triggers inside you, but because you've also done your own work. Like you just don't go blindly into someone's hair and makeup chair and be just like, yeah, do whatever. I'm pretty sure not. I mean, that will be fun, but I don't think you're going to do that for your wedding. And so someone coming up to you and telling you otherwise about all the things that you have in mind, about all the things that you've already worked hard on, you can manage that much easier because you know you've already done the work. You know that I'm amazing no matter what. I am going to choose. You are going to choose to be happy with your choices. I've read this somewhere. Comment below if you know who is it from. I'm going to eventually add it. But there are no bad choices. All choices are just choices. It's up to you to make it good or to make it bad. It's up to you to either make it work for you or make it work against you. So that's all about you. All these insecurities that we have, the triggers that we have, either we take it and we just like,
I'm just not gonna talk to anybody. I'm not gonna face anybody,
which by the way, I went through at one point. It's just so, I can't hear other people. I can't handle other people's comments. I don't want to deal with that. Which by the way, again, of course, be respectful of your boundary. If it's a little too much for you, like it's unnecessary exposure to these people. You don't have to be around them all the time. You're gonna let them go, or you're gonna step up and be just like, yeah, no, I'm only gonna spend an hour with them. That's it. Anything more than that, I will be triggered. I will just be so annoyed. I will be exhausted. No. But even so, when you're aware, they can't use it against you. It's harder for you to be upset. Not that you won't be, you will still be. But the level and the intensity of you being upset and holding resentment about those people that know what you're insecure about and know what your triggers are, and yet still chooses to not be considerate about it when it's your wedding. To end this episode, I would want to say that sometimes people come up to us and situations come up and scenarios come up, circumstances come up that might rub us the wrong way, not because it is actually the wrong way, but sometimes it's our insecurities. And this is why we want to be aware of our insecurities and our triggers and our fears. That way we can find ways around it, navigate around it, find better approach, set better boundaries, and work with them in a way that brings us love, joy, and peace, because you deserve it. It's your wedding. You deserve all the love, the joy, and the peace. And that's a wrap for today's episode of the Little Book of Mindful Wedding Planning series. Your comments, questions, and support mean the world to us. And I can't wait to hear from you in the comments section below. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell so you can never miss an episode. If you found today's episode valuable, please give it a thumbs up so it can reach more people. Thank you so much, lovelies. See you on the next episode. Bye!